Welcome to Full Focus. I'm Gloria Penner. San Diego's summer art scene is flourishing, and tonight we spotlight two special events. Art icon Peter Max is in town for an exhibit of his artwork. He'll join us later in the program. And the musicians are tuning up and rehearsing for tonight's opening of La Jolla SummerFest. With me to talk about what's new at the La Jolla Music Society's 19th annual festival is Fred Child, host of National Public Radio's Performance Today. And Fred, I am delighted that you could be with us. You know, for many years you've been coming to San Diego to cover SummerFest. What makes this particular music festival worth the attention of Performance Today and you?
Well, there's several things about it, Gloria. First of all, Jimmy Lin, Cho-Leung Lin, the artistic director of SummerFest, is a remarkable musician in himself, a great violinist, but he also has a great vision for what music is and can be. And I think that, as much as anything, is what brings us here to bring this to a nationwide audience. You know,
the vision is the interesting thing, I think, because the title of the Summerfest Festival this year is Points on the Compass. So I have a sense that there's a relationship between that and his vision.
Absolutely, yeah. Classical music is in, I think, a real transition moment right now. A moment when it's trying to figure out what it is and where does it go from here? What is classical music in the 21st century? Well, classical music has always thrived on drawing from other traditions, drawing from folk music traditions, drawing from various vernacular music. People thought it was odd when Bach threw in drinking songs to his Goldberg variations. People thought it was almost blasphemous when other composers did that, when Franz Liszt borrowed Hungarian gypsy tunes and put those in his music. Well, so now what are we doing? Well, now we're doing points on a compass, is how Jimmy Lin has put it, and classical music is borrowing from Latin music traditions, from jazz, from Chinese music. And this will only help classical music grow and thrive in the 21st century. And the fact is, there are some festivals that are a little bit shy about taking this kind of forward-looking approach to what classical music is and can be. Summerfest is doing it.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, the risk-taking involved when you sort of go outside of the envelope outside. So we did ask Summerfest Artistic Director Cho-Leung Lin, affectionately known as Jimmy, about the diversity of programming this year, and here's what he had to say.
We have music not only from the great masters from the past, from Bach to Mozart to Brahms, but we also have music that's written by a couple of fabulous Mexican composers, as well as a great composer from Argentina, and we have composers from China who will be visiting, and we're doing some new works written by American composers. But the fact is that, you know, all this music is congregated here in San Diego, and I think that's what makes, I think, this whole event, this festival, Summerfest, a very lively form to express about, you know, everyone's artistic feelings.
You know, the core of La Jolla Music Society is chamber music. It involves small groups, trios and quartets. That's what I'm used to seeing. What changes in musical style can we expect to see this season, since they're starting to experiment somewhat?
Well, the first big change is the opening concert tonight is a full orchestra. It's the San Diego Symphony, which has never been a part of Summerfest before, and they've never had a concert in downtown San Diego before. So that in itself is a big change right there.
Going from 3 or 4 musicians to 80.
Yeah, yeah, and that'll be tremendous fun. And Cho-Leung Lin will be there. He'll be soloing with the San Diego Symphony. So this brings together two powerhouses in San Diego, the La Jolla Music Society and the San Diego Symphony. Yeah, and of course, and they're doing dozens of concerts, chamber music concerts, with that usual collection of duos and trios and quartets and so on. But to start off with a full symphonic concert concert is something brand new and really exciting for
Should be
SummerFest.
spectacular.
Yeah.
They're doing something else that's really different. It's a special event involving Superior Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor.
Supreme Court Justice,
Supreme
yes.
Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor.
Yes, one of the 9 Supremes, as I like to say. Yes.
No, she doesn't sing, though, does she?
No. No.
What is going to happen during that program?
She'll be helping to present the program, and actually it's all music related to the law in one way or another. She'll be helping to introduce the program, and my boss, Benjamin Rowe from National Public Radio, will be there as well. And the Supreme Court, this is something people don't realize, the Supreme Court is not just a legal institution, it has become a musical institution. Every year in May, they present a concert, music at the Supreme Court.
Do they play? Do they have instruments?
They themselves don't play. The 9 justices don't play. But they host a concert with some great musicians in the Supreme Court building, and it's become a regular annual event.
Well, what a coup to have her as part of the program. Jimmy Lynn also talked with Full Focus about some of the stars in this year's lineup.
I'm joined by a couple of great colleagues. One is Lila Josefowicz, who is a fabulous violinist, and we'll be playing the Bach Double Concerto together. And then the great soprano Heidi Grant Murphy will sing 2 beautiful Mozart arias. One is an early Mozart work. It happens to have a violin solo obbligato added to it by Mozart. So I'm going to play the violin with Heidi Grant Murphy singing, and then she sings this fantastic aria, Exultate Jubilate. I mean, when it's sung by a great singer like Heidi, it usually gets the audience really going. Yeah.
The festival includes, of course, the classical composers that we expect: Schubert, Bach, Mozart. What contemporary composers will be included?
Well, this is a real key to what makes SummerFest great, I think, because every year now they bring 4 composers to be composers in residence. This year there are 2 Chinese composers, Chen Yi and Bright Sheng, who both grew up in China, now live in this country, and they write extraordinary music. Both of them are intimately familiar with Chinese traditional music and with Western classical music. And the way
points of the compass again.
Exactly,
yes.
Points of the compass. And the way they meld these together is just something extraordinary and helps point the way toward the future, I think, of classical music. Also, Chick Corea, who people know maybe better as a jazz pianist, but is a fabulous composer and a very versatile musician. People don't know this about him, but he made a wonderful recording of Mozart piano concertos. So Chick Corea knows both sides of the musical coin as well. He's written a new string quartet that will get its California premiere during the festival. And Robert Capello is the 4th composer.
Wonderful. It should be very exciting. Getting back to what you were talking about earlier about the collaboration with the San Diego Symphony, we asked Jimmy Lynn about this collaboration, and he said a lot of it comes from his friendship with symphony conductor Yahya Ling.
We went to the same school, Juilliard, and we started playing together with Yahya as a conductor when we were both in our much younger days, some 20 years ago. So our friendship, it goes back a long way, and it's wonderful that he's coming to San Diego, and then I'm here too, and it was just a very natural mental connection to make. They said, why don't we work together? And if we can make some great music together and make everybody happy, it should be done.
So certainly this is going to be very different, as we both said. But what does it add, let's say, to the quality of SummerFest? People who decide that they're going to get the season tickets, and it starts off with the symphony. Does this bring their expectations to a new level?
Absolutely, and I think expectations are rising in the artistic community all around San Diego with the huge gift from the Jacobs family to the San Diego Symphony. Expectations are rising there. Expectations are rising with SummerFest too, and they're a very ambitious festival, and to their credit, I think, ambitious artistically and ambitious in terms of artistic scope, with bringing in a full symphony to open the proceedings. That's terrific and opens up all kinds of new musical possibilities.
I spoke with Mary Lou Oleski. She is the Music Society's president and CEO a couple of weeks ago, and she said that she's interested in furthering collaboration rather than competition among arts organizations. It feels to me as though this is a step in making arts organizations more collaborative rather than competitive.
Absolutely, and why shouldn't they be collaborative? I mean, that's where great art happens, is when artists get together. Having Chick Corea here, bringing his jazz sensibility to music, having these Chinese-American composers bringing their Chinese musical sensibilities to classical music, that kind of collaboration is what makes art great and takes it to the next level.
No risk involved in this?
Tremendous risk involved. Of course. When you take these kinds of artistic chances, it doesn't always work. But the kinds of people they're choosing to put together have a very high probability of working. And the other thing that I love about SummerFest is it's not only a very high artistic level at every single concert, but they give people so many gateways into the music through something called encounters, conversations with the composers, performance chats where you hear performances and conversations, pre-concert talks that are very informal. They're not like lectures. Very informal, informational events.
The La Jolla SummerFest won an Adventurous Programming Award last year. Do you expect that we're going to see some really adventurous programming this year? I mean, would they qualify for another award?
Absolutely. One of my favorite and most adventurous concerts is coming up tomorrow night, Friday night. It's a collection of dances from Points on the Compass, starting with something by John Adams, one of the greatest living American composers, called John's Alleged Dances, a collection of everything from what he calls sort of twisted hillbilly rhythms, to all kinds of odd things for string quartet. Then music by Chen Yi, Chinese composer. Music by Bohuslav Martinu, a great Czech composer. Music that Bela Bartok, a great classical composer of the 20th century, wrote for Benny Goodman in 1939. So again, you have the melding of jazz and classical. So the way these different elements come together in the current music scene, SummerFest really focuses on that. And this, to me, is where classical music is going. People say, what is the point of classical music now that we're entering the 21st century? It has to draw from these other sources. It has to draw from China, from Latin America, from vernacular music, from jazz, to grow into what it can become.
We'll be listening to you on performance today. Thank you so much, Fred Child.
Thank you, Gloria.
La Jolla SummerFest runs through August 22nd. You can catch Fred Child at 3 intimate performance chats with musicians over the next few weeks. Visit our website for more details. Summer is a busy time for the arts in La Jolla. Artist Peter Max is in town for a special appearance at the Wentworth Gallery in La Jolla. You surely will recognize his work, and he joins us now. Welcome, and
Gloria, nice to be here.
Thrilled that you're with us.
Thank you.
Really thrilled. Okay, so give us a little preview of what people are going to see at the gallery this weekend.
Well, these shows at these galleries, especially the Wentworth Gallery in La Jolla, they're very much sort of like condensed, smaller museum shows. They have sort of a little bit of a retrospective feel. So there's some stuff that you can remember from the very late 60s, early 70s, 80s, when I first came on the scene, right to the things I've done now, including famous icons like the Umbrella Man or Sage with Cane, Profile Ladies, and some of my cosmic stuff that I've done.
You're calling it Colors of a Better World? Why that?
That was the name of a museum show that a museum gave a show, so all the galleries kept it the same way. And I'm very much involved, Gloria, in better world situations. I love to protect animals. I like to do things that are very, very important for the environment. We do in the studio almost 1,000 charities a year. That's almost 4, 5, 6 a day, all environmental.
Maybe that's one of the reasons that you're known as the United States Painter Laureate and an icon, a pop icon, and you've been very busy lately, I understand. So what are some of the artworks you've completed in the last couple of years?
Well, many. I draw and paint, Gloria, every single day. I get to the studio around 12, 1 o'clock, and I usually stay till about midnight. And I work, I draw, I paint. I'm always making completely new paintings. Even this brand new art book that's out by Abrams, The Colors, The Art of Peter Max.
That's this one.
This
yes.
is it. There are all the styles that I've gone through, you know, from the cosmic 60s right to the expressionist stuff I'm doing right now, which is sort of very loose expressionist, gigantic brushstrokes. So I do these paintings every night, and my biggest discipline, Gloria, is not to know what I'm going to paint. That is my love of the art. The creativity happens in the doing, not, oh, I am going to do. It's as you do it.
But there are some paintings that you must have known that you were going to paint. For example, you've painted portraits of the last 6 United States presidents.
Yeah, when you do portrait or do Statue of Liberty, then of course I know what I'm painting. But if I'm just painting for the sake of art, then I don't know. It's just like a jazz musician sitting down.
What a list. The Dalai Lama.
Dalai Lama,
Mikhail Gorbachev, right? And did they sit for you, or did you paint them from photographs or from what's in your head?
From photographs. You know, the sitting stopped sort of around in the 20s or 30s. You know, when there were no cameras, people used to sit. A king used to sit for a painter for 4 or 5 days. Today, Gorbachev sends me a photograph, or the Dalai Lama sends me a photograph. But I get very creative about it. A portrait of Dalai Lama would be 108 portraits. I always like to do an installation of 5, 6, 12 pieces of a person in all different colorways. So I asked the assistant to the Dalai Lama, tell me what his favorite number is. So I thought it would be maybe 12 or 16. He comes back and says it's 108.
108?
108. I says, for the Dalai Lama, I'm going to paint 108. So that 108 paintings took me about 2-3 weeks. They were all over the floor drying. And I sold half of them and gave all the money to the Dalai Lama.
I understand that you've used the Berlin Wall as your canvas. How did that come about?
Well, the Chancellor of Berlin wanted me to have a wall. And then I found out that Donald Trump offered him a lot of money to put the wall in front of his Trump building. And then the Cincinnati Museum wanted a wall, so I thought I lost the wall. And then I came up with an idea one night. If I took a chisel and hammer and carved a bird out of the wall and stuck it on top in flight, you know, like taking the bird out of the wall and giving it peace. They may like the idea. I called up the Russian Chancellor and he said, oh, I love this idea, and he gave me the wall. And then now the wall is on top of the Intrepid aircraft carrier in Manhattan, in the port on 44th Street.
It must be thrilling for you to see
it. Oh, yeah.
It.
It's so nice to be involved with, like, historic things all the time.
Well, history, I mean, you personally have been held responsible for producing the 1960s. I mean, you talk about history with the love beads, tie-dye, the psychedelic designs. How responsible do you believe you were for the look of that decade?
Well, you know, at the time, I could tell you, Gloria, I was just glad and happy. I was running around with about 10 friends who believed, like I did, about a better world coming. I never thought that my art style would represent a decade. I could have never thought that my ego was not that big. But as the years went on, everybody comes over and says, thanks for the 60s. It's hard to understand, but the images probably reflected, you know, the Aquarian age. My real 60s images reflected that Aquarian age.
But it hasn't gone away.
It hasn't gone away.
Woodstock.
This is the Woodstock stage. Now, this stage is about 800 feet wide. And, of course, the stage I created was only about 5 feet wide. And then it was printed. It took 14 weeks to print in Toronto.
When was this done?
This was 1999.
Okay, so that was in the 60s.
It was not. It still has the reflection of it. You see all the cosmic jump and all the characters. These are all the same characters that sometimes are in some of the paintings that people will even see at the Wentworth Gallery. But then there are also other things that are more reflective of what I'm doing now.
What happened to this stage?
This stage is now being cut into small pieces, because it's just too big to show unless you build a whole scaffolding. And VH1 and Clear Channel, they're all going to start offering it to the kids around the United States who love rock and roll as a memento, sort of like owning a piece of history in the making, owning a piece of Woodstock.
So once you've been identified so closely with a generation, how difficult is it to develop an image as the artist of the new century?
Well, you know, the thing is, I may have been identified with that, but then I'm always making new things. So every year, every second month, every 2 weeks, every few days, always new things come in. The Grammys, portraits of Gorbachev, Indy 500, the Super Bowl. So I'm always doing new things, painted for all the presidents. So for every group of people, they remember something. Some people remember the 60s, some people remember Woodstock, some people only remember Woodstock 99.
How would you say that your art has changed from the psychedelic images to the work you're now doing?
Well, most artists, like, you know, some of the greats, even Cézanne, Picasso, Matisse, they all evolve. There's an evolution going on. I may have had this particular style in the beginning, but then I started working with larger brushes and bigger canvases and much looser and so forth. Now my paintings are completely abstract, just gigantic brushstrokes. And so it's always evolving. I would get tired if I had to do the same thing.
We actually have a picture of one of your paintings from the realist period.
Right.
And it's, you know, it's kind of hard to think of the current Peter Max as somebody who worked with realism as you did. Do you still use realism, though, for the portraits?
Sometimes I just do it to show off to myself, not for anybody that's standing next to me, but I just want to see if I can still do it. Realism is something I studied in the art school, Gloria, for 6.5 years at the Art Students League. In fact, my teacher, Frank Riley, the great Irishman, when he was my age in school, 20 years before me, 30 years, the guy that sat next to him was Norman Rockwell. Sat in school next to him. So I come out of that kind of... But when I painted realism, everybody said, wow, this is unbelievable stuff. But if we need realism, we would get photography. And I said to myself, how come no one ever told me that? And so my style changed, stars and planets, because I was so interested in astronomy, you see.
Well, you're interested in a lot of things. I mean, you've been an environmentalist. You've been kind of political about that. You've been an animal rights advocate. Well, for example, you told me a wonderful story a bit ago about saving a cow.
Yeah, Cindy Wu the cow.
Do we have a picture
I don't have
of
the
Cindy?
picture here of Cindy Wu, but one day I was at post-production, I'll tell you quickly, in the post-production house. My buddy was parking a car, came to visit me, and as he was parking the car, he heard about a cow that they shot with a stun gun to drag her back to the slaughterhouse after she escaped, jumping over a 6-foot fence. And when he told me, did you hear about the cow in Cincinnati? I thought he was telling me a joke. He says, no, this is real, this is happening. So immediately I picked up the phone, I called up the mayor of Cincinnati, Steve Lucas, and I called up Lukens, and I called up all these other people, the ASPCA. Make a long story short, 7 days later, I adopted the cow.
You got the cow.
And of course, she's not living with me in Riverside Drive in Manhattan. She's the farm sanctuary. That's where she's beautiful, beautiful 200-300 acres, farm animals to live their life out over there.
Well, all those animal advocates out there are going to love you even more,
Yeah,
Peter.
well, I love them. They're such great people.
The politics of it, though. I mean, right now we're between national political conventions. We have a presidential election coming up. Is this the kind of atmosphere that inspires you to create a piece of art?
No, actually, art comes from a completely different place. It really doesn't come from what's outside. It may be influenced by music or by the kind of style, the moment of the times, but the art really comes from a willingness to create. It has nothing to do about who's running for what.
Well, what about that?
Well, these are sometimes I lend my art.
That feels political.
Yeah. Well, I did this after 9/11. I did this to raise money for the Pentagon Memorial Fund. People can go to petermax.com. That's my site, petermax.com, and they can buy this poster, and it will say, "To Gloria with love, Peter Max." And they pay $150, and all the money goes to the Pentagon Memorial Fund. They go to the website. But when I paint just for the sake of inventing images, that's where the thrill of creativity is. I have to have no ideas, just a blank mind.
In the minute or so that we have left, there's no doubt that you create an enormous amount of art. I mean, there's a whole plane of art that you created.
This was really great. This is when my good friend Gene Luntz, he's here with us, met with Gordon Bethune, the chairman of Continental, and he was in my studio one day, and he saw a plane hanging from the ceiling. And I told him one day, he says, "Mr. Bethune, do you think this could fly?" And he said to me, "Heck yeah." And I said to Gene, "I think he means yes. This is how this happened."
Do you have any concern that the prolific nature of your art, creating so much art in any way, detracts from its importance?
No, the importance really is in the creativity, not the quantity or what I do outside. The creativity is the most important thing, that I'm in a creative space. I'm able to be creative. This is where the importance is.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Peter Max, for spending some time with us.
Thank you. Thanks.
And that's all the time we have for tonight's Full Focus. Log on to our website at kpbs.org for more about Peter Max and for a complete listing of events at La Jolla SummerFest. And you can listen to KPBS Radio's live broadcast of SummerFest beginning in just a few minutes at 7 p.m. by tuning your radio to 89.5 FM. And join Full Focus again tomorrow night when we bring you an encore presentation on reforming California's parole system. For KPBS, I'm Gloria Penner. Good night.